Phyllis Diller was not just a comedian. She was a storm of laughter wrapped around a lifetime of pain and survival. From the very beginning, her story carried twists that could shock anyone who thought comedy was all about smiles. Born in Lima, Ohio, in 1917, she grew up surrounded by older people, funerals, and a constant awareness of death. Instead of fearing it, she found a strange fascination that would one day shape her dark yet hilarious style. But you won't truly understand this story unless you stay with me till the very end, because behind her crazy laugh and wild wigs, there were secrets so deep they kept her chained even as the world celebrated her freedom on stage. As a little girl, she discovered humor in small classroom moments, but reality was brutal. The Great Depression forced her family into financial struggles, and she sold newspapers just to help survive. Music seemed like her escape. By the age of 10, she was admitted to the prestigious Sherwood Music Conservatory in Chicago, a prodigy at the piano. For years, she chased that dream, even playing with orchestras. Yet self-doubt crushed her, and she quit, believing she could never be as good as her teachers. What looked like failure was actually destiny redirecting her towards something greater. Marriage came early, in 1939, to Sherwood Diller, and soon motherhood followed. But along with children came crushing poverty, postpartum depression, and constant moves from one city to another. Sherwood couldn't hold steady work, and Phyllis carried the entire weight of survival. She found escape in radio shows, absorbing the rhythms of jokes while she cooked and cleaned. In those moments, a spark lit within her. But nobody could have guessed that spark would one day set fire to the comedy world itself. By the early 1950s, Phyllis Diller's life seemed like a never-ending grind. She was trapped in a failing marriage, weighed down by 5 children, and haunted by constant financial stress. Yet, hidden beneath all this chaos was a woman preparing for her rebirth. She worked odd jobs, copywriting, advertising, and even as a piano teacher. But every day she felt the fire inside her growing stronger. Comedy wasn't a career option yet, but she knew laughter had always been her secret weapon against misery. And when she finally dared to use it publicly, the world would never forget her name. Her break came unexpectedly. At age 37, she stepped onto a small stage in San Francisco at the Purple Onion, a local nightclub. Instead of polished one-liners, she brought raw honesty, jokes about her housework, her looks, her chaotic marriage. The audience roared with laughter because she was saying what so many women felt but never dared to admit. That night, a star was born. People weren't just laughing at her jokes. They were laughing at the courage it took to expose herself so fearlessly. Soon, television producers noticed her. She began appearing on shows like The Tonight Show and others, where her outrageous wigs, wild dresses, and cackling laugh made her unforgettable. Unlike polished male comedians, she embraced chaos. Her act was messy, loud, and unapologetically female. Critics tried to dismiss her as a novelty, but audiences proved them wrong. She was opening doors for women who had never seen themselves represented in stand-up comedy. But even as she rose to fame, her personal life remained a battlefield. The marriage with Sherwood collapsed, leaving her a single mother balancing children and a demanding career. Still, she refused to slow down. Phyllis Diller was rewriting the rules, one laugh at a time. By the 1960s, Phyllis Diller had carved a place for herself in American comedy. She was no longer the struggling mother in a trailer park. She was a household name, touring relentlessly and performing hundreds of shows a year. Yet, her climb to the top came at a heavy cost. Her second marriage crumbled, and she was left managing not only her children, but also the immense pressure of staying relevant in a competitive industry dominated by men. To survive, she worked harder than anyone, sometimes doing over 200 performances annually, pushing her body and mind to the limit. Her comedy became a mirror of her reality. Jokes about her Fong teeth, her terrible cooking, and her fictional husband Fong became staples of her act. People laughed because they saw truth wrapped in humor. What they didn't see was the exhaustion behind the laughter. Financial troubles stalked her constantly, with court battles and debts piling up. Even when she was earning 6 figures, much of it went towards supporting family and covering expenses left behind by unreliable partners. Still, Diller found ways to reinvent herself. In 1979, she fought for her rights and won a $5 million lawsuit over music royalties, a victory that steadied her finances. Yet, instead of slowing down, she kept working, driven by an unstoppable need to perform. Along the way, she turned her hardships into resilience, teaching her audience that humor could be armor against life's sharpest blows. Behind the stage, she faced her own vulnerabilities. She began a long journey with plastic surgery, starting in the early 1970s. Facelifts, nose jobs, breast reductions, eye lifts, over a dozen procedures shaped her appearance. She joked that no two parts of her body were the same age, but privately, the surgeries were shields, a way to survive in a world obsessed with youth. Phyllis Diller's later years revealed a woman who refused to stop creating. By the 1980s, she was not only a comedian, but also an author. Her book, The Joys of Aging and How to Avoid Them, turned the fear of growing old into a punchline, proving once again her talent for transforming pain into laughter. Readers loved it, just as they had embraced her earlier works. Yet, behind the humor, she was quietly recovering from divorce and battling the uncertainty of growing older in a fast-changing entertainment world. Her resilience kept pushing her forward. Even after stepping away from stand-up in 2002 at the age of 85, she reinvented herself yet again, this time as a painter. Her Brentwood home became an art gallery filled with her creations. Guests would attend small parties, admire her work, and even pay thousands of dollars for her pieces. One painting took her 15 years to complete, proof of her persistence and passion. Creativity had always been her lifeline, and painting gave her yet another outlet to express what words could not. But her body, worn by decades of work and surgeries, began to falter. A back fracture in 2007 forced her to cancel appearances, and her health battles grew more severe. She had already survived cardiac arrest in 1999 when her heart stopped completely. Even then, she fought back through therapy, refusing to surrender. By 2005, she was still lending her unmistakable voice to characters on television, with her laugh echoing in shows like Family Guy. Her final public appearance came in 2012, when she accepted a Lifetime Achievement Award in her hometown of Lima, Ohio. Frail but smiling, she stood as proof of a life lived with defiance. Just months later, at 95, her heart gave out. Phyllis Diller's story ended as she had lived it, with courage, humor, and resilience. On August 20th, 2012, at the age of 95, she passed away peacefully in her Brentwood home. Her manager revealed she died with a smile, her ashes later scattered at sea in a gesture as simple and free as her spirit. The world mourned, yet it was only after her death that many discovered the private pain she had hidden. Decades of depression, chronic illness, and unbearable personal losses. She had outlived 4 of her 6 children, endured heartbreak from failed marriages, and survived brushes with death itself. Still, she never let audiences see that sorrow. What the world saw was laughter. Her legacy was larger than comedy. She made it acceptable for women to stand on stage and be bold, loud, and unapologetically funny. She broke barriers in an era when female comedians were virtually unheard of, and she did it with self-deprecation, honesty, and relentless wit. Every joke about Fong, every story about her chaotic home life, was a carefully crafted way to turn personal hardship into universal humor. Even beyond the stage, she showed what it meant to reinvent oneself. From comedy to writing to painting, Diller proved creativity could thrive at any age. Her life was a living example of resilience, of refusing to let tragedy define her story. She didn't just survive adversity, she turned it into art. For fans, her message was clear. It was okay to be imperfect, broken, or struggling, because humor could make even the darkest days lighter. That was her gift to the world. Phyllis Diller left behind not just laughter, but permission to be human, to be flawed, and to keep smiling anyway.